Good evening. I'd like to call this regular meeting of the Show Low City Council to order. By roll call, see that all council members are present with the exception of Council Member Leach and Council Member Alsop, who have been asked to be excused this evening. I'd like to welcome those of you who are with us tonight in the council chambers, as well as any citizens that may be watching us from home this evening. We'd like to begin by an invocation. I've asked Council Vice Mayor if he would offer the invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by Council Member Kelly. Those who would like to join with us, please stand.
Our kind and gracious Heavenly Father, as we gather this evening for the regular meeting of the Show Low City Council, we ask a special blessing on those in our country and throughout the world that are hurting tonight, that have lost loved ones. We ask that thou will watch over them, give them comfort and safety. We thank thee for the opportunity to serve this city. We consider it a wonderful pleasure and a wonderful privilege. We ask that thy Spirit be with us tonight, that the decisions that we come to tonight are good and that they will serve the city well. Again, we thank thee for the opportunity to join tonight. We say this in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Please join me in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Vice Mayor and Council Member Kelly. We're all saddened by the recent tragedies that have taken place in our neighboring state, as well as throughout the United States, and the devastation, as well as senseless acts of killing. And our heart goes out to those citizens, those people who are grieving, those who are also families of the shooter, as well as the victims, as well as the first responders. None of us can make full sense of the things that happen. But it's hard to understand that there are things that are evil, that are dark, and that is not what we enjoy in life. And we just hope that through the light and through the faith that they have, whatever that faith is, that they'll find faith, that we know that we do have a living God who loves us, who cares for us, and that hopefully that they can find peace in their solace and in their life, of whatever it may be. Our heart goes out to them, and at this time we're going to have 59 seconds of silence to think of those who lost their life recently. Each of those seconds of life was lost and families' lives were changed. But through it all, through the responders and things that we learned and things that we saw, may we realize that there will be unity, that there will be the coming together of people who rescued, who sacrificed even more so, and acts of bravery. May we remember as citizens, let's unite through this, and let's show kindness, and let's be the best that we can be as citizens of this great country. May God continue to bless our great nation. Thank you. Tonight we have call to the public. Any citizen desiring to speak on a matter that is not scheduled on the agenda may do so at this time. We ask you to keep your comments to 3 minutes and to address the council as a whole. We do have one here. Chad Housley would like to have you come up at this time.
I'm Chad Housley. I'm the superintendent of schools here in Show, and I wanted to take the opportunity this evening to express my appreciation for the city of Sholo and the partnership that we have with you. And we feel at Sholo Schools that a strong partnership with the city, strong schools lead to strong cities, and vice versa. And it is our goal and our desire to have strong schools for the city of Sholo. And that's our commitment as we continue to strive for strong programs in the arts, programs in athletics, and other extracurricular offerings, as well as raising academic rigor and providing a world-class opportunity for our students. As you know, we had the opportunity in June. Our board called for a bond election, and I wanted to provide just a little background on that. The state of Arizona over the last 10 years has reduced capital budgets for schools over 85%, meaning that we have approximately 15% capacity in our capital expenditures, from about $1.1 million to just under $160,000 to take care of needs like buses and buildings and roof systems and air conditioning and anything else that might fail, causing schools from around the state to look to their M&O budgets to try to take care of some of those things, leading to other things, as you've heard around the state, low teacher pay, other satisfactions, and other things like that around. And we all experienced that coming out of 2008. The state took that money to balance the budget, and I think we all can understand why that happened in 2008. Those cuts were never restored. When I was brought on a year ago, one of the tasks that I had was to evaluate the systems within the school, including our capital facilities, to see where they were. As I started to go around and to look at these things, I noticed some of the issues that were significant, and I brought those issues to a group of community members who met and reviewed those things that I brought before them as a capital review committee. Some of them were the points that came to the forefront immediately were student safety, transportation, and security, and those things can't be ignored. When we talk about student safety, just this summer, for instance, we had a roof inside of a classroom collapse. Fortunately, it was during the summer because it fell right on the teacher's desk. We were able to remediate that and take care of that issue, but we have roofing systems that are failing, and security issues around the campus that cause us some grave concerns. How are we to address these? Well, we can look to do it with $160,000, but it's not going to take on, it's going to take a long time to address those needs in that kind of a fashion.
Your 3 minutes are up.
Thank
I'll
you.
yield you another 3 if any
I'll just take
council
30
members have a problem
seconds.
with that. Okay,
If
you got
that's
another
okay.
3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to just thank you for your support that the city has shown the schools to this point, and give you our commitment to increase and to continue to be something that you can uphold in the community as something that's valued and treasured as a good commodity. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Anyone else to call to the public? At this time, I'll close call to the public and come back to next item. We have a special event. This time I'll turn the time to our city manager, Mr. Muter.
Thank you. Last week, the Navajo County Board of Supervisors appointed a new county manager. They appointed Glenn Kephart, and he's here tonight to introduce himself, and we want to introduce him and welcome him as Navajo County manager. We have a lot of partnerships with Navajo County, and we want to continue those partnerships.
Welcome, Glenn.
Thank you. Thank you, Manager Muter, for arranging for me to come tonight, and thank you, Mayor Seymour, Vice Mayor, and council members for allowing me a couple minutes to address you this evening and then introduce myself. And I think it's important to do that because we've had some really successful partnerships in the past between the county and the city of Show Low. And we can accomplish more working together. And I wanted to assure you that as the new county manager, that is very, very much our continued philosophy. We believe that what is good for one community, one city in this county is good for all. And will continue to work to strengthen the partnerships that we've had in the past. One of the reasons I wanted to come tonight is I think that partnerships work best when people know each other. And it's important to me to come here and introduce myself and make sure that you know that we're accessible as a county anytime you need us. Your staff works great with the county staff already. Ed and I spend time together. It's important to do that when you don't have an issue, so that when you have an issue, you've already got the relationship built. So we look forward to working productively with you. It's an honor to meet. It's an honor to meet you, and it's an honor to be here tonight. And I also, on a personal note, I need to thank you because I get to be a City of Show Low resident, have been for the last year and a half, and I love it here. I think you're doing a really good job. You're doing it right. So thank you for that. I look forward to
Thank you. Congratulations, and look forward to working with you. Any questions or comments of the county manager?
One last thing, if I could. I was talking to Jimmy today, and he said if you have the opportunity, please send his regards from Jimmy Jane. So I said, certainly I will find the time to do that. So
He's a has-been. But a great one.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Tell him hi too, okay? Thank you. Our next item is the consent calendar. Any items need to be discussed that's on the consent calendar? Items that we have is R 2017-30, adopting the Navajo County multi-jurisdiction hazard mitigation plan update of 2017, and the minutes of the September 19, 2017 meeting. Look for a motion, Councilmember Crittenden.
I move to approve the consent calendar.
We have a motion seconded by Councilwoman Kakavas. Any other discussion? Call for the vote. All those in favor? Any opposed? See that passed 5-0. Next item we have is new business. First item we have is a public hearing. Applications submitted by King Kenneth Kowalski on behalf of the Circle K store number 9526 for a number 10 beer and wine store liquor license for its location at 5404 South White Mountain Road, Show Low. Ms. Kurosaki.
Thank you, Mayor. Kim Kwiatkowski, who represents Circle K number 9526, submitted an application for a new number 10 beer and wine store liquor license for its future location on South White Mountain Road. We posted the property per state law, received no public input. The Show Low Police Department conducted a background check on the applicant and other associated individuals as part of the application and found nothing amiss. In addition, the Department of Liquor Licenses and Control will conduct its own internal investigations and background checks. Based on the investigators' findings and the recommendation of the City Council, the State Liquor Board will decide whether to approve or deny the application. And please note, there are two recommendations you can choose from to approval or denial. If you make a motion for denial, you must state the reasons for the denial. And Mr. Kwiatkowski was not able to come tonight, but we have District Market Manager Dan Metcalf, and he is available should you have any questions.
Thank you. Any questions of council at this time? Seeing none, I'll open it. Public hearing at this time. We now have the public hearing is open. Seeing nobody moved public hearing, I'll close public hearing and bring it back for item 8B, consideration of the application submitted by Ken Kenneth Kowalski on behalf of the Circle K number 9526 for a new number 10 beer and wine store liquor license at its location at 5404 South White Mountain Road, Show Low. Ms. Kurosaki.
Mayor, I have nothing further to
You
say.
have nothing further? Okay,
you
I'll
have any
look for a
questions.
motion. Councilmember Crittenden?
I move to recommend approval to the State Liquor Board of the application submitted by Kim Kenneth Kwiatkowski for a number 10 beer and wine store liquor license on behalf of Circle K, store number 9526, for its future location at 5404 South White Mountain Road in Show Low.
I think we have a motion. Is there a second? Second by Councilwoman Kakavas. Any other discussion? Does that mean, I guess for the applicant, does that mean you're bringing a store to Show Low?
Yes, sir.
New one pretty soon? Thank you. Okay. All right. All those in favor? Any opposed? See that passed 4-1. Next item we have is item 8C, consideration of resolution number R2017-27, approving and authorizing an execution of intergovernmental agreement to join Navajo-Gila County Information for Technology Educational Consortium. Mr. Brimhall.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. In today's world, everyone understands the important role broadband access and information technology play in advancing education and learning. Recognizing that accessing information through broadband is a key resource, representatives from Navajo and Gila counties have worked together for the past couple years to improve broadband access to all libraries and school districts in both counties. The federal government has an E-rate grant funds available for only one more year to help pay approximately 80% of the cost to construct better broadband infrastructure. The state is also offering funds to offset 10% of those costs with a 10% match from the federal government to make up the remaining 20% in construction costs. To be eligible to apply for these E-rate funds for broadband construction, a consortium of libraries and school districts must be created. 18 public libraries and school districts in Navajo and Gila counties have been asked to approve an intergovernmental agreement to join this consortium as quickly as possible to facilitate applying for these grant funds, and 16 of those entities have approved the IGA. Because the grant funding timeline is so narrow, a request for proposals was issued to seek a vendor to construct the broadband infrastructure. After all entities have joined the consortium, the parties will enter into preliminary discussions to review submitted proposals. The vendor that is selected will both construct the infrastructure and provide internet services to the consortium's members once infrastructure is complete. With the expectation that E-rate funds will pay for the construction, the financial commitment for the consortium members is to pay monthly service fees to the vendor for broadband access. There is no binding obligation to the city when it joins the consortium. Once costs have been determined, the city has the right to opt out of the IGA if they are deemed prohibitive. The Navajo County Superintendent of Schools will serve as the fiscal agent and coordinate the actions of the consortium as recommended by the County Attorney's Office. And with that, staff can answer some questions, and we have some helpers available from that consortium.
Okay. Do you have any questions of council? Councilwoman Kakavas?
What is the anticipated cost of the project?
With us tonight's Ken DeWitt from the county. He's got all the technical specs and answers to those questions, so I'll turn the time over to him.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. DeWitt.
Thank you. I'll try to answer as best I can any questions. So your question was, again, what the estimated cost? We don't really have estimated costs at this time. The reason is because we're going out for an RFP. We've had 12 different vendors indicate that they are interested in bidding on that RFP, of which all the ones that we know of around in this area, they're part of that group too. The whole idea behind this consortium is to have costs less than what we currently have. If we don't get those costs less than what they currently have, I'm sure everybody's going to opt out and not participate. And that's an option with the consortium. Hopefully that answers it well enough.
Is that an option before or after it is built, or both?
It's both. It's an annual thing. We have a put together a fees list or schedule in March for the next budget year, starting in July, and you can opt in or opt out at that time.
Why don't you just kind of explain this in layman's terms for us? Exactly what you're trying to achieve here? I mean, I know we're adding broadband and we're adding it.
Right.
Kind of share with us where that would go, how that would help our communities and things going forward.
This option is this is the last year that E-rate funds, which is only available for schools and libraries, will pay 100% of construction cost. So this gives us an opportunity to put together a wide range of anchor institutions, all the schools, all the libraries, that if a vendor comes in and says, okay, I want to do this for you guys and connect all these locations, they can put in a fiber infrastructure and the feds and the state will pay for that. So that should offer for us, and the hope is that they will not just put in the 2 or 3 strands of fiber that is needed by the school or the library, but actually put in more so that businesses and other areas that they can expand their services here that we have in the area. So that will hopefully increase economic development and increase access to faster broadband services, if that makes sense.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Not all look for a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Vice Mayor?
I move to adopt resolution number 2017-27, approving and authorizing the execution of an intergovernmental agreement to join the Navajo-Gila County Information Technology Education Consortium.
We have a motion, is there a second? Second by Councilwoman Kukovas. Any other discussion? I'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? See that passed 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Brimhall, next item is consideration of award of purchase of playground equipment. So you're working with the internet and now you're back to playground.
It's the same thing.
Very, very varied in my skill set, I guess.
You are. When's
All right, the city council budgeted funds for playground equipment in fiscal years 2016, 2017, and 2018. The budget includes carryover amounts of $60,000 from fiscal year 2016, $50,000 from fiscal year 2017, and this year, fiscal year 2018, council budgeted $49,000 for a grand total of $159,000 for the playground equipment. After reviewing options for several smaller playgrounds, the council directed staff to consider combining funds to make one major upgrade of the existing playground equipment near the Little League baseball field in City Park. Staff assembled an informal committee who heard presentations from 3 playground equipment vendors. The committee chose the design from Exerplay Incorporated. City staff will be responsible for moving the old equipment, all the site work and the grading work that needs to be done. The purchase price includes installation by Exerplay, which will occur in spring of 2018. Removing the old equipment and installing the new equipment should take around 6 to 8 weeks from start to finish. Staff recommends purchasing the playground equipment from Exerplay, Inc. to replace the current equipment near the Little League playground through the Cooperative Purchasing Network in an amount not to exceed $158,462.64. And with that, staff is available for questions.
Thank you. Councilmember Crittenden?
You say you're moving the old equipment. Are we going to be installing that in other playgrounds somewhere?
No, that equipment precedes a lot of the rules and regulations that exist now. So if we pull it out of the ground, it can't go back into the ground because it does not meet those regulations.
Really?
Really. It's kind of frustrating how they do that, but that's how it is.
It's possible that we have an overhead of this, if we can get that up, if possible. All right, can you kind of just explain that to us a little bit? I mean, kind of where it's at and where it's going to. There we go.
There it is.
You need to see, Jay.
There it is, perfect. Okay, so what you see there, you see our parking lot right there at the Little League field, and then immediately to the north, you see kind of a new playground area. Included in that playground area, there's a large 5 to 12 playground structure, which is designed to be for kids around 5 to 12 years old. That's the larger of the structures, and that's kind of the centerpiece. That'll be in the middle. It'll be the most prominent piece that you see when you drive up. It's got a lot of slide features, a lot of climbing features. It's the color scheme is actually really neat. Excited for that one. And then let's see here. Right to the south of that, immediately to the south, is the 2 to 5 structure, which is designed for 2 to 5-year-olds. It's a smaller structure, still with some slides and some climbing surfaces and some inventive play features, but it's a little smaller. I've got a 2-year-old, and I imagine she'll see her brother and sister on the 5 to 12 and want to join them, but I imagine she'll spend most of her time on the 2 to 5 for now, anyway. And so inside, you see that neat area back towards Owens, and that is a zip line feature. Those are all the rage right now with the new playgrounds that are being installed. Actually, I've ridden on one. I have ridden on one. My kids have also ridden on one. There's one in Prescott where my folks are from, so every time we go to Grandma and Grandpa's house, the kids make me take them to a park with one of those zip line features, and it is very fun, very exhilarating, lots of fun. So that should be a pretty neat feature for that playground. There's also over there in the right corner, there is a swing feature. It's kind of a large swing that can handle 4 or 5 people, large people at the same time. And these are very robust pieces of equipment. It can handle probably 9 or 10 kids, and they can get swinging on that, or can handle adults and kids. It's a really neat feature as well. My kids want me to always swing them really high on that one when we're in Prescott at Grandma and Grandpa's house. So they really like that one too. Those smaller features you see down towards the center to the right-hand side, those are features that spin. They're for independent play. That's what they're designed towards. Some kids just like to play independently of the others. You know, maybe it's a little too crowded at one piece of playground and they want to go over there and spin. Spinning is something that kids love to do. I have to constantly tell my kids to stop spinning and, hey, just calm down and go do this. Well, here I can take them to the park and they can spin to their heart's content. These are all really neat cutting edge features. That one at the bottom right, that's a circle, that's a spinner where multiple kids can spin at the same time. That's a really, really neat structure also. Over to the left side, kind of in the middle, that is called a Weesaw. So it's kind of the seesaw type of a feature, but you can handle 4 or 5 people on it. And that's a really fun one too. And then there's a climbing structure. The one right north of that is a climbing structure for kids of all ages. We wanted to include a little bit more climbing into this design, so we put that in there. And this design, I just wanted to let the council know that this design, you can see that there's some negative space in there. And these are preliminary drawings. The way that these are formed and put in might change a little bit, but generally that's what we're looking to accomplish with just the play structures. But we also have to take into consideration drainage and all those sorts of natural things also. So we're working with our engineering folks to make sure that all those needs are taken care of. And so the way that this is arranged might switch a little bit. However, all those features will be there, and it leaves us a little room to expand this playground as we see fit.
Councilwoman Kukovis.
Are we retaining the barbecue grills?
As far as I know, the barbecue grills that are there are going to remain there. I don't know if there are any there, but if they're there, we'll keep them.
And then is this area, is that a roof of the little ramada that's out in the middle of the field there?
Correct.
Is that, okay.
Correct. Just to give you a kind of a spatial alignment. Mm-hmm.
And that will help the parking, I think, on the south side as well. We'll be able to improve the parking there. And tell us about those trees, or those big trees going down.
Those big trees going down. Well, there are no pine trees going down.
Okay.
There's some.
there's a couple of those big trees there between the Ramada there. There's kind of a big juniper tree there, but they're.
Where the swing set is?
Councilmember Crittenden.
With this new equipment like zip line, et cetera, are we going to have city staff being there to staff those?
No, sir.
So people are
everything-
going to be getting on, kids are going to be getting on zip lines by themselves. And what is the liability of the city for this new equipment?
That's an excellent question.
Thank you.
We actually, you're welcome. We actually checked on that this week, and those are covered by our insurance. And honestly, the zip line is about, let's see if the TV can grab me, it's about this high. It's not real high. You're not getting strapped in. It's on a, it's not what you think of as a zip line up at Sunrise. It's not like that. It's doable for a kid who's 2 years old, and doable for a kid who's 39. So very little risk of falling unless you want to. But we're covered there under recreational immunity also.
Yeah, generally we have recreational immunity for things in the park that are posted and for, you kind of use at your own risk. And we also have insurance to back us up, so.
That's an excellent question, though.
You know, it's amazing the cost of these things, and it's great that was able to put it together over a couple, 3 years to get, you know, a bigger, make our park really a little more featureful for our residents. I think it will be kind of a state-of-the-art park here going forward now, too.
I think so. And one thing I wanted to add also, that before we start removing that old equipment, we will post a couple weeks prior, just to make sure that everybody's well aware of when it's coming down, how long it should take, and what's coming, but more importantly.
That's good. All right, any other questions, comments? I'll look for a motion. Councilwoman Kukovis.
I move to award the purchase of playground equipment to Exerplay Incorporated through the Cooperative Purchase Network in an amount not to exceed $158,462.64.
I have a motion, second by Councilmember Kelly. Question, Councilmember Kelly.
Real quick question. I don't recall hearing, what is the time frame of this? When's it going to be installed?
Oh, it sometime in the spring of next year.
Okay,
So before we get super duper busy at the park.
okay.
Any other questions? Okay, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Any opposed? See that passed 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Brimhall. Next item is consideration and possible adoption of resolution number R2017-29, approving the issuance of revenue bonds, Summit Healthcare Association project, in one or more series of the Industrial Development Authority of the City of Show Low, Arizona, and declaring an emergency. Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'll present the staff summary here tonight, but we also have Mike Cafiso, who's our bond counsel, and he'll probably be answering most of the questions. Just as a way of background, the City Council, as you know, approved the formation of an Industrial Development Authority for the City of Show Low. The Industrial Development Authority is to promote industry and develop trade in the Show Low area and encourage economic development in the area and to promote job opportunities. Projects that we've typically funded by this Industrial Development Authority have been several multi-million-dollar projects related to the hospital and its expansion, and also to the biomass plant near Snowflake. Recently, the representatives from Summit Healthcare approached the City of Solo to see if the IDA would support financing an amount not to exceed $45 million to finance the cost to the hospital for paying all or a portion of the cost to acquire land for and construct and equip and provide improvements for an approximately 100,000 square foot medical office building, the first stage of a 16,000 square foot ambulatory surgery center, and an approximately 40,000 square foot administrative services building, and to provide improvements to the main campus of the hospital. The documents have been reviewed by Michael Cafiso, our bond counsel, the IDA, as well as myself, and we find them to be satisfactory. As you know, in the past, the Summit Healthcare is responsible for the debt. There's no obligation to or burden on the IDA or the city for the lease or the financing. The IDA board met this morning and approved the financing of the bonds, and city staff recommends that we adopt resolution R 2017-29 approving the issuance of the revenue bonds. I believe that this will bring more jobs to the community and expand healthcare services in the community. As you know, last year we also adopted a resolution which approved policies and procedures to the IDA. In accordance at that policy summit, we'll pay the application fee of $3,000. And myself, Mr. Confiso, Mr. MacArthur from the hospital is here to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Michael Confiso with Greenberg Traurig. Thank you for having us here this evening. I do need to point out one issue we have, and that is that the resolution includes an emergency clause. And since there's only 5 council members present tonight, we're going to have to adopt it without the emergency clause, which isn't a problem. It's just so when the motion is made, assuming you are willing to make the motion, you'll need to just make the motion and by oral modification indicate that it will not include the emergency clause tonight. We're glad to answer other questions. I just wanted to get that on to your attention as quick as possible.
Okay. Thank you. Councilmember Kelly.
Yeah, I understand the emergency clause would be for allowing this procedure to happen in a more rapid fashion, but there is a technicality that on the emergency clause we have to have. Is it a unanimous decision or 6 council members voting? What is it? I'm asking our attorney.
6 out of 7.
Huh?
6 out of 7.
6 out of 7, so it'd be really hard to get 6 votes out of 5. So that's why you're saying we would be asked to do it without the emergency clause. Just wanted to clarify that. It was my understanding that was correct. Also, in Mr. Brown's presentation, I believe I heard him clearly say the hospital would be fully responsible for the repayment of these bonds, and that if it would be fair, and somebody correct me if I'm not giving a decent summary here, the city would be acting as somewhat of a facilitator in allowing this to go forward with no financial obligation to the city. Is that correct?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, the city is actually approving, as a result of a requirement in state law, the issuance of the bonds, and is also, for federal income tax law purposes, approving the issuance of the bonds as required by the Internal Revenue Code. If there was going to be a facilitator here, I think it would be the Industrial Development Authority. The Industrial Development Authority acts as what we call a conduit for the issuance of the bonds. So because the Industrial Development Authority is a political subdivision, it's able to borrow money on a tax-exempt basis and lend it to the hospital. And so I think that's the real facilitation here. The mayor and council have an important function. We need both those approvals for state and federal law purposes.
I think I understood the difference between what you said and what I said. And but the bottom line is the city is not bringing on any financial obligation. We do not have to budget any money to pay this back. And so then it prompts the question, and heaven forbid, but the hospital were to fail in the proper payback, does any responsibility come back on to the city?
Mayor, members of the council, the debt is what we call completely non-recourse against the city of Show Low and the Industrial Development Authority. So the investors in the debt will acknowledge the fact that the only entity they can look to for repayment is the hospital. So it's the hospital and the underlying real estate, the revenues of the hospital, that are the source of repayment in the case of a non-payment event as you described. But again, to be clear, there's no obligation on the part of the city in any respect, budget or otherwise, and no responsibility on the part of the Industrial Development Authority to repay the debt.
Thank you for that.
Any other questions? Let's ask you, what does this do to anything on our bond rating, or say if we needed to have another bond, the city needed to go for a bond, how could this possibly affect us?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, again, it has no effect. It's debt only on the balance sheet and the financial statements of the hospital.
Okay, you say no effect, but we had a situation previously where we got ready to borrow some money when we had too many of these out in a fiscal year, and we had to wait until something happened, and at that time there was an effect on us. Maybe I didn't explain myself.
Mayor, you're right. The mayor has a good memory. There's a weird quirk in the statutes that if you have too much of the kind of tax exempt that debt outstanding. It doesn't make the city obligated for it. It just removes the ability to take care of an exemption that might have gotten you a slightly lower interest rate. That's not going to happen this year because we're not in that same situation. That occurred because the city was borrowing at the same time the Industrial Development Authority borrowed. And to be very conservative and make sure that the Internal Revenue Service didn't come in and audit and suggest that we couldn't take advantage of that, we didn't. And again, if it cost anything, it would have been a very small amount of additional interest cost.
Using this mechanism, approximately how much does this help save Summit in this adventure of this borrowing?
Mayor, members of the council, it's the difference between what the rate would be if it wasn't exempt from federal income taxation as opposed to being subject to federal income taxation. So there's a spread between those rates. Just in your own sort of sense of borrowing, if you knew you didn't have to pay taxes on the interest you're going to receive from the debt, you would obviously be willing to quote a lower interest rate. So it's really that differential. I'm not a banker, so I want to be careful about quoting rates. But in the current market, it could be 1.5%, 2%, maybe even more.
Thank you.
We're prepared to answer that.
Okay, if you have that. Thank you, Mr.
Piper
MacArthur.
Jaffrey, run the numbers. David, $7.5 million in savings and interest is what it saves.
Great, that's great.
So it's a big savings.
Is this non-emergency clause going to affect you in a negative way that's going to hurt this?
Mayor, members of the council, the emergency clause is sort of belt and suspenders. We like to have it just, because it's extra, it's an extra feeling of comfort. And again, I don't want to get too much into the weeds here, but the action is considered to be an administrative action as opposed to a legislative action of the mayor and council. So technically, you really don't need an emergency clause because it's administrative. But again, if we can get it, we like to have it just out of an abundance of caution. So it won't slow things down in any way.
Okay.
Thank you. Councilwoman Kukovas.
This is one of the largest projects, or is the largest projects this community has experienced. So if you would, Ron, would you kind of give a presentation as to what this is going to do for the community, what the project consists of for our viewers?
Thank you for the opportunity to explain. As outlined in the resolution, we envision 3 buildings going up on the property, formerly known as Pine Shadows Mobile Home and RV Park that we acquired 3 years ago. The largest building will be a combination medical office outpatient services building. It will be 105,000 square feet, 3-story building, 35,000 square feet per floor. The first floor will be all outpatient services. Second floor will be medical office space for our surgeons, and third floor will be medical office space for the medical subspecialists as well as primary care physicians. That building will be owned by NextCore, and the hospital will lease 86% of the square footage on it. NextCore, as a private investor, will be paying property tax, so it will be additional property tax for the county. The second building is an ambulatory surgery building, be roughly 16,000 square feet, house 4 operating rooms and a special procedures room, and it will be attached to the second floor of the medical office building by a covered walkway so the surgeons can walk back and forth between it and their offices. The third building is what we're calling an administrative services building. It'll be 2 stories, 54,000 square feet, and it'll house a number of administrative functions that are currently in the hospital as well as scattered in other buildings. We plan to empty our 5th floor at the hospital and convert that to a 12-bed general psych unit. So we'll be adding additional behavioral medicine beds on the mountain and moving those offices over to the administrative services building. Rough estimate, once Summit will be hiring 100 new employees, so a job opportunity growth, and seems like during the construction period there'll be 100 to 150 people being employed by Hayden, is the one that received the guaranteed maximum price as the general contractor. We'll be overseeing the construction. Pending the outcome of this meeting tonight, we'll take it to our governing board and get a board authorizing resolution to move forward. Our tentative date to close on the transaction set or October the 12th, and groundbreaking to follow within 2 weeks. We expect a 12 to 16-month construction time, 4-month site preparation would begin immediately, and then we call the vertical building steel coming out of the ground in March with a completion, sometime within 10 to 12 months. So moving into the building first quarter 2012. That's a brief summary. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Share with us a little bit of some of the offices that will continue to stay in our community, maybe like the walk-in clinics, things like
Yes,
that.
we plan to keep the Pine Top Clinic open with their walk-in clinic. We have the clinic on the Deuce. We plan to keep that walk-in clinic. Pretty much everything in between those two will be consolidated in the building for economies of scale. We'll keep our Snowflake clinics, 2 of them open where they're at. We'll keep our Holbrook clinics open where they're at. Our Eager Clinic will stay open where it's at, and our Heber-Overgaard Clinic will stay open where it's at. We'll get a lot of economies of scale by consolidating and make it easier access for the patients to be able to see their physicians and go down to the first floor and have a one-stop shop for all outpatient services that they would need.
Are you going to be able to handle the view from the different level from, you got one of the best views right now.
We think it'll be a little bit different on 2-story versus 5, but they can always go and become part of the behavioral medicine unit and look at.
That's great. That's great. Any other questions of anyone here tonight? Do we have any questions of the audience, or anybody would like to share anything that's here tonight, maybe? Okay. Appreciate the board members and people that are present as well tonight. Councilmember Crittenden.
I move to adopt Resolution R 2017-29 approving the issuance of revenue bonds Summit Healthcare Association project in one or more series of the Industrial Development Authority of the City of Show Low, Arizona.
We have a motion. Is there a second? Councilmember Kelly, we have a second. Do we satisfy the condition of the emergency? Do we need to say excluding an emergency or anything?
Yeah, he didn't read that part, so I think we're okay.
I know he didn't, and we're okay with that. Okay, thank you. Any other comments? I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Any opposed? See that passed 5-0. Thank you. Appreciate it. Look forward to great things up there. Thank you. Next item we have is a summary of current events. Any council members wanting to share anything in current events may do so at this time. Councilwoman Kukovas.
Good timing that the hospital administration and governing board are here tonight. We've had a large demand in our community for cash-based pricing for outpatient services in our community. We've lost a lot of patients off the mountain because of some of the pricing. Our mission at the hospital is to provide excellent, compassionate care close to home. And today we rolled out a new program that our CFO has presented to our board and to our organization, to where you can get cash-based pricing. You can receive those services right here on the mountain for almost the same price as you can for going to the valley. So it's an exciting time for this community and healthcare.
Great, great.
I can just add
Vice Mayor.
that when a person reaches the age that I reach, it's always exciting to see more health care becoming available. And my compliments to the hospital. I have had some occasion to be there, and I've always been treated well, and I'm proud of it, very proud of it.
We definitely do have an up-and-coming hospital, even better and better every day with that. I just like to visit. I don't like to attend.
I have no choice.
The waiting rooms are fantastic. That side of it. Any other current events?
I would like to mention one, and I might defer to the city manager. Had an occasion to work this Monday with State Game and Fish to do something that I've always wanted to see happen in the meadow. There was a stocking campaign where they brought in trout, and some trout that I'd be proud to catch on any stream in Arizona. The Game and Fish people did a wonderful job, city manager and Jay. We really enjoyed seeing that happen. We know that it's going to bring a new dimension to the meadow. I've watched that creek and wondered when we were going to get to plant some fish in there, and it finally happened. And I'm proud to be there and be a part of it.
Thank you. That's great. I just want to tag on to our school was here this evening, well, Mr. Housley was, that we do have this election that's coming up here for our bond. It is very important to our community that we have good schools. And I just, I'm in favor of the bond and just hope that other citizens of the community, if you have questions, we have a committee, a yes committee formed. Feel free to reach out to any of those committee members. I myself am a committee member. We have some other guys right here that are committee members as well. So if you have any questions concerning that election, it is a by mail ballot only, and those will be going out in the next week or so. So pay attention to the issues and learn about them if you need to. Thank you. City Manager.
Just to follow up a little bit on the community fishing program, the council approved that a couple of meetings ago. And as Vice Mayor Hatch mentioned, they stocked that creek yesterday with some very nice fish. The community fishing program is open in the Shoal Creek, on Shoal Creek in the portion of the meadow that the city of Shoal owns. So on both ends there's private property, but on any property the city of Shoal owns, it's open to fishing. There's parking available at the Shoal Bluff Trailhead on White Mountain Road. And the Game and Fish has provided signage installed by the city staff with catch limits on species, and those have been posted on the site. So it'll be a great program in partnership with the Game and Fish for the Shoal Creek. Fall play days for kids ages 5 to 11, which will coincide with fall break next week. It's a drop-in recreation program from 8 a.m. to noon on Monday, October 9th through Thursday, October 12th at the City Campus Teen Center. And if parents want their kids to participate in all 4 days, it's $35, and you can call 532-4140 to register. And next Friday, October 13th, the Recreation Department's hosting a free movie in the park at 7 p.m. at the Ponderosa Field at the City Park. And then finally, on the Public Works projects, we're completing some of those projects. The milling and overlaying of Shoal Lake Road is beginning this week. Concrete works completed on 10th Avenue. Paving should begin shortly. That's the street west of Safeway. Work continues on the sewer project on 11th and Owens, with roads open to local traffic only. And roadway improvements in the Park Valley subdivision will begin October 9th. We appreciate the patience of the citizens that live in those areas, but it'll be an improved situation once we complete those projects. Thank you.
Any other comments? Just remind everyone of the meeting. We have our retreat this Thursday at 9 o'clock. We'll be meeting at the community meeting there at the Public Safety Building, and it'll be from 9 till we quit. So encourage you to be in attendance. Seeing no other business, I'll adjourn this meeting.